Stephen Zunes. He's a professor of politics and director of Middle Eastern Studies at the University of San Francisco. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. So, Mr. Trump, we know has a long history of speaking off the cuff and floating ideas and never materialize. So just how serious do you think we should take his latest suggestion?
Well, obviously, the Palestinians are not taking it well because they have already experienced ethnic cleansing. Most of the Palestinian population was forcibly removed from 78% of Palestine during the creation of Israel. And so the idea of further removal of Palestinians from Palestinian land, even the narrow strip that constitutes Gaza, really is abhorrent to them. And of course, in the international community, I mean, ethnic cleansing, which is what this would be, is a serious war crime. And it's in contrast to Biden, who, despite criticisms for his strident support for Israel, at least in theory, believed in a rules-based international legal order. Trump's dismissal of these longstanding international legal principles is rather disturbing, particularly that he is now the president of the most powerful country in the world.
Professor Zunes, I know it's early days yet because Donald Trump made the comments over the weekend, but is it possible at all that this signals a change in U.S. policy towards Palestinians? I think you mentioned it earlier. Previous American leaders all supported a two-state solution.
Already Trump has made it pretty clear that he does not support a two-state solution, that his backing of Israel and its rejection of that is something that, and the fact that if you look at his appointees, for example, his appointee to the ambassador to the United Nations says that Israel should control the entire West Bank because it's in the Bible. And his appointee for ambassador to Israel says there's no such thing as a West Bank. There's no such thing as a Palestinian. So he's appointed some very, very hardcore people to these positions. At the same time, while Biden said he supported a two-state solution, he opposed the United Nations taking action to make it possible. He refused to condition military aid to Israel to making it possible, and he's generally not done very little to make a two-state solution a reality. So, as far as Palestinians are on the ground, it probably won't make that big a difference.
And Professor, is it clear what Donald Trump means when he says clean out Gaza? Does he mean the entire population in the Strip itself?
It sounds like he was talking about the majority, at least, particularly in northern Gaza, where the destruction has been most severe. I mean, the Israelis didn't just bomb buildings; they bulldozed them, they dynamited them. It really was a systematic destruction of pretty much all the buildings there. And so he's already been talking about how it's nice real estate. His son has speculated of Israelis creating resort hotels, and Trump has talked about how nice the weather is, and it's right by the sea. And I mean, this is not subtle what's happening. I mean, this is classic colonialism. But what's rather shocking is that he would be so flagrant about it.
And Professor, both Egypt and Jordan have strongly rejected this idea. I mean, despite their historical ties to the Palestinian cause, what do you think are the key reasons behind their resistance to this proposal?
Well, Jordan already hosts over 2 million Palestinian refugees, and it has been a source of conflict on and off in that country for many decades now. Egypt has a hard time even feeding their own people. And to have additional migrants moving in would be very hard for their economy as well. But I think they also recognize that in solidarity with the Palestinians, they don't want to be accomplices in what would be removing them, from their homeland.
Professor, I want to ask you about the realities on the ground. Can Trump actually force Jordan and Egypt to accept more refugees? Well, the entire, Middle East unraveling and all that he's managed to achieve with the Abraham Accords unraveling as well?
No, I don't think he could get away with this. The people of the Middle East obviously would not want to be a part of this. The governments, even though most of them are authoritarian, have to at least listen to their people to some degree. And so I do think that it's not going to get very far. But what it does do is embolden some of the more hardline, overtly racist elements within Israeli politics. And that, of course, hurts the more moderate Israelis and the more moderate Palestinians who would like to see a viable two-state solution emerge.
As controversial as it is, Professor, I mean, given the devastation in Gaza right now, do you think there is any merit to Trump's idea, perhaps offering a different kind of resolution to this long-standing Israel-Palestinian conflict?
The only real resolution will be equality between Palestinian Arabs and Israeli Jews, either in a viable two-state solution or a single binational state with guaranteed rights for both peoples. There can never be a real solution that does not recognize this. And that's why the extremism of Hamas, who doesn't recognize the Israeli Jews and their ties to the land, and the hardline Israelis that dominate their current government, that don't recognize the Palestinian Arabs and their ties to the land, unless ultimately Israeli security and Palestinian rights are not mutually exclusive. They're mutually dependent upon the other. And so it's really critical that we get to the roots of it, and that is a viable solution that recognizes the rights, fundamental rights of both peoples.
Israel hasn't commented on this suggestion as of yet, but the idea of encouraging Gazans to relocate to neighboring countries has long been pushed by hardline right-wing members of Netanyahu's government. To what extent do you think Israel has played a part in Trump's suggestion, either directly or indirectly?
I think this is mostly Trump's own initiative, frankly. I mean, he is, what he says is very close to those of the most hardline extremist elements in the Israeli government. Even Netanyahu has not overtly suggested this kind of forced removal. But Trump has his own ideas, and I really do think that it was primarily came out of his own head.
All right, Professor Zunas, we will leave it there. We thank you very much for talking to us on the show this morning. Stephen Zunas is Professor of Politics and Director of Middle Eastern Studies at the University of San Francisco.